Hi, this is Anne, or Anne as they say in Dutch, and I'm here for day 4 of my advent calendar project. This is, as per usual, my chocolate, and this is a tool, a tip, or an insight. So let's open this small house. It's a small house today, and let's pull out the piece of paper and let's have a look at what's on there. Today we're going to be talking about task hopping. This is something that I used to do a lot. I would jump from one task to the next without finishing anything. And there's a couple of things that I could share about this, but I'm gonna stick to just one thing, and maybe in the future I'm gonna be talking about other things that are relevant when it comes to task hopping. But for now, just one thing. So let's first start by giving an example. Imagine that I am working on a presentation, so I'm in the presentation, I'm doing my thing, I got that tab open, I'm working, and then I'm thinking about an email that I need to send. And so I'm leaving the presentation, I'm going to the email, I'm looking for the email, I'm opening up the email that I want to reply to, and I start replying to that email. And then as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the meeting that I need to schedule, and so I'm leaving the email and I'm going to the tab with the calendar, and I am looking for a date to find with all the participants so that I can fix the meeting. But then I'm thinking like, hang on, I got this meeting this afternoon that I didn't prepare yet. And so I'm leaving the meeting request without finishing it. And I am going to the document that I need to read through in preparation of the meeting later that day. And then as I'm doing that, I'm thinking of something else. And so I stop preparing the meeting and I'm doing the other thing, and so on and so on. And as a result of that, I have lots of tabs open and I have a very frazzled energy because my focus, my attention, my energy is very scattered and all over the place as well. Because I'm doing something, I'm walking out of it, or I'm taking myself out of it, and then I'm starting something new, which is requiring my brain to make a switch. And then I'm not finalizing that, I'm going to still another thing, and then my brain has to switch again. And then at one point when I'm going to go back to my presentation, the one that I started with, my brain has to familiarize itself again with what was I doing, what was the storyline that I was building, where was I exactly, and my brain needs some time to really get back into that task. So there's lots of scattered energy, scattered focus, and also a focus waste, an energy waste that is really tangibly there because our brain, or in my example, my brain needs to switch every time from task to task. And whenever it lands on a new task, it has to familiarize itself again with where was I? What was I working on? What was I working towards? And so that's taking literally energy from my brain as well as time. So task hopping comes at a cost of not finishing the things that we started and having this frazzled energy, and also introducing this focus waste. So what can we do about this? Well, I tried different things back in the day when I would task hop a lot. And one day I took a piece of paper and I put it next to me, and I started scribbling down all the other tasks that I was thinking of as I was working on one thing. So in case of my example with the presentation, the email, the meeting request, etc., I would be working on the presentation and then think like, oh, I got this email that I need to reply to. But then instead of leaving everything behind and going into the email and start working on that, I would simply jot down reply to email X. And then I would continue working on the presentation. So there's this tiny distraction that's happening because my brain is thinking all of a sudden, it's popping up in my brain that I need to reply to that specific email. But then instead of engaging with that task that popped up in my brain, I'm simply jotting it down, and then I'm going back to the presentation, the thing that I was working on. And then whenever something else pops up, let's say that at one point in time, I'm thinking, oh, I need to prep the meeting of this afternoon, or oh, I need to send out the meeting request, or oh, I need to do this thing or that thing, I would simply jot it down on that piece of paper. And then once I finalized my work on the presentation, I would then have a look at the piece of paper and say like, okay, I'm gonna do these tasks now one by one, or I'm gonna do some today and others I'm gonna do over the next days. So that's a way to not follow all these distractions that pop up in our brain, but simply jot them down and keep working on the thing that you're working on. That prevents our brain from engaging with all these different tasks. So the popping up of all the things we think of, there's no way for us to stop that from happening. Like it's boom, there it's popping up. What we can control, what we can do something with or do something about is then following the thing that popped up in our brain. So I can simply jot down like, hey, I need to reply to that email, instead of following the thought that popped up in my brain and start working on that email and jump then from task to task. So that's what I wanted to share about task hopping. I was thinking of something else as I was explaining things, and now it's slipping my mind. So if it comes back, I'll shoot a little extra video to edit in later. So this is for task hopping. When you're working on something and you can put your timer, let's say, hey, I'm going to work on this presentation for 30 minutes. You can put your timer, and then you simply, whenever a thought pops up reminding you of something that you have to do, you simply jot it down without engaging with the thing that is popping up in your brain. And then after the time that you spent working on the presentation, you can then take care of the tasks that you jotted down. The reason why it's important to really jot it down is that it gives this reassurance to our brain, like, hey, I've been thinking about it and I'm not gonna forget. If I would think about, hey, I need to reply to this email, I'm working on this presentation, and then I would think like, hey, I need to work on this email, and I would not jot it down, but I would want to count on myself and my brain to remember it, it's gonna keep nagging at me. It's gonna keep popping up, and then in the end, I'm gonna go to that email that I want to reply to and start working with a task. Like writing it down as soon as it pops up, writing it down without engaging with it any further, just simply writing it down reassures our brain like, hey, it's taken care of, it's tracked here, I'm not gonna forget about it, and I can now, with more peace of mind, continue working on this presentation. So that's a tip for today. If you find yourself task hopping, moving from one task to the next without finishing anything, this is something that you could experiment with. When you're working on the thing that you're working on, you simply have a piece of paper, like a small post-it note next to you, and whenever a to-do or task pops up, you simply jot it down on that piece of paper. And then once the task that you were working on is done, then you go back to the piece of paper and then you see what's on there. And you can tackle it then one by one. All right, that's for the task hopping. And actually the thing that I wanted to add, I added it because all of a sudden I was thinking, yeah, I wanted to say why it's important to jot it down on that piece of paper. That's to give our brain this reassurance like, hey, I'm not gonna forget about this. It's on the paper, so now we can rest assured and keep working on the task that you're working on. So that's what I was thinking of, and it popped up in my brain as I was talking, so I added it in. And so now I've shared everything that I was thinking of right now when it comes to task hopping. There's other examples that I could give. Another reason why we task hop is not because there's something else popping up in our brain, but rather because we stumble upon a difficult part in the work that we are doing. And then we might want to distract ourselves from doing the difficult part. There's some resistance popping up like, I don't know how to say this. And then instead of working on the task and keeping at it, I might distract myself and want to follow that distraction and do something else. And that's a way to procrastinate. And we have a different visitor today. Yesterday it was Charlie, and today it is Dexter who's visiting us. I actually should add a little picture here in the video. So that's another that's another reason or another scenario of task hopping. We are working on something, we are focused, there is nothing distracting us saying, hey, I have to do this to do, that to do, that to do. But then we bump into something that's really difficult. We're not sure how to do this or how to say this. There's this discomfort and resistance popping up. And what might happen then is that our brain is gonna invite us to do something else, to walk away from that resistance. And then we tell ourselves like, hey, I'm gonna work on that presentation later when I feel more inspired again. Or maybe I'm gonna do it tomorrow when I had a good night's rest. And so that's a different scenario. It's not the topic that I wanted to share with you, the focus for now. And the thing that I would invite you to experiment with is take a piece of paper, put it next to you as you're working on something, and whenever there's to-dos popping up in your brain, simply jot them down without engaging with them. Simply jot them down and then focus back on the thing that you're working on. All right, that's it for today as far as the tip, tool, or insight is concerned. So I'm gonna put it back in its little house, and now we are gonna go to this box here. I'm gonna open it up. There's a chocolate in there. I'm really curious to see if I can figure out today what taste it is. I only managed so far the first day to identify what was in there, and then the second and the third day it felt familiar and I recognized the taste, and yet I could not put my finger on it. So I'm really curious to see what is gonna happen today, and I'm curious to see what chocolate we have today. So I opened the box. I am grabbing the chocolate. Let's unwrap it. Oh, it's a Christmas one. Can you see it? Yeah, there we go. It's a gingerbread man. So cute. This is really Christmas vibes. It were chocolates that I ordered in a box, and it was a random mix of all the different chocolates that they make. And so this is a gingerbread man one, which is very fitting with the advent calendar theme and Christmas. So let's have a taste. So this is what it looks like here. There's some crunch in it, and there's some speculaas, as they say in Dutch, in there. Let me taste some more. As I said before, I'm going to look up the name of the chocolate as well as the key ingredients. It has these speculaas vibes going on. And there's one outspoken spice in there. And no surprise there, I cannot put my finger on it actually. But it's definitely part like I like to use speculaas spices, as we call it here, speculaas. It is, I should look it up what it is in English, what the name would be in English. And I always I use lots of cinnamon and then also some speculaas kruiden, speculaas spices. I put them in my banana bread granola that I make, and I love the taste of it. I love the smell of it. And here for sure, it's in that same taste family, let's say. But there's one spice that really comes through most, and I'm gonna look up what that is because I'm really curious about it. I cannot pinpoint it right now. It's not even on the tip of my tongue. I have no idea what it would be, but it is very familiar, and it's for sure within that speculaas spices area, let's say. All right, so I opened the 2 boxes, and I hope to see you tomorrow for day 5 of my advent calendar project. See you tomorrow.